Nemesis at Alton Towers. After 30 years of thrilling its guests, the iconic roller coaster has been rebuilt and relaunched. We go in depth into the ride's groundbreaking design and construction, with new research and pictures seen for the first time.
It doesn't get better than this.
To discover the making of Nemesis. The legend starts back in time, in the summer of 1990, 10 years after the theme park had officially begun in the grounds of Alton Towers, and the sale to new owners, the Two Swords Group.
Well, this is Alton Towers back in 1990. We gave a presentation to the Two Swords development team, which consisted of Ray Barrett as the boss, John Wardley, and the other John who used to manage Barry Island. I got then involved in Chessington. That was the very first project I did. And quite soon after that, that went on to Alton Towers. And that's what I've done ever since. I've been sort of master planning things. So I understand how buildings go together, but I understand how the whole thing goes together as well.
The Two Swords Group had a particularly good group of people who had been the leads in redeveloping Chessington, from being a zoo into Chessington Wildwood Adventures. Particularly John Wardley as the creative lead on that. And that same group was sort of shifted into Alton Towers on acquisition to look at how the park could be developed. So by the time you get to 1990, Alton Towers had been dropping in visitation. It had been bringing in a lot of second-hand or even third-hand roller coasters like the Thunder Looper or the Beast, which were some of them leased rides, just to try to maintain numbers.
This is Forbidden Valley, or as it was then, Car Park F. A simple grass field, home only to the car park monorail station at one end and the centre Skyride station at the other. In 1990, just before the acquisition, the park had installed the Thunder Looper here, fenced off from the rest of the field. Today's Forbidden Valley.
Straight line, straight up.
Parks Development Director John Wardley saw the potential in Alton Towers for a long, thrilling wooden coaster, and it's little known that his first proposed coaster for Alton Towers was in fact a wooden twin-track racing coaster beside the Forbidden Valley area.
John was looking at a racing coaster across the valley. I mean, obviously very keen to get a big, what in those days we used to call e-ticket, which was an old Disney. I don't know, again, when I first went to Disney in the 70s, you got a little voucher book for the different rides. So in the industry, people refer to the e-ticket as the expensive flagship ride. So that was always the aim, that we were going to put in a flagship coaster. But in the end, there was no way we could have got a coaster in for 1992.
The coaster was planned along the present-day Woodland Walk, climbing to a peak beside the Skyride station before dropping along the side of the valley. The ride would follow the side of the valley, reaching a turnaround close to where the Resort Adventure Golf is located today, and returning back to the station.
John has always had a great wooden roller coaster in his bones, and it's a natural thing to him to look for. It didn't get all that far.
Whatever.
The coaster plans were shelved, while Alton Towers instead focused on family developments for 1992, with Katanga Canyon and the Haunted House. But looking ahead to 1994, the park was already set on finding a novel, new kind of roller coaster. In the USA, a new kind of steel coaster, was being prototyped by Aerodynamics, a manufacturer known for their experimental coaster engineering. John Wardley had spent some time with Arrow's director, Ron Toomer, learning the ropes of designing coasters before working with them to build the Vampire at Chessington, a suspended swing coaster. The next coaster type Arrow was planning to launch was the Pipeline, in which the coaster train sat within a tubular track, able to perform axial manoeuvres about their centre. Tussauds were excited about this opportunity for a world's first coaster type, and John Wardley proposed an outline theme for the coaster based on its bullet-like trains, with ideas for a themed area surrounded by fences as a secretive facility, dubbing the ride the Secret Weapon. A layout similar to Arrow's prototype was proposed, with a short height due to the restrictions on Alton Towers that nothing should be built above tree line. However, this would have made for a short ride duration. Instead, an ambitious idea struck to build not up, but excavating down into the rock bed. A much longer pipeline layout was drafted. Glimpses of these plans were published some years ago, which we've pieced together here for the first time, featuring 2 parallel lifts, a tunnel, and many interactions with the surrounding area.
It was one of your drawings, I think.
That's right. I just threw them up. What I was looking for is something that would allow you to have quite a lot of height on this side and quite a lot of depth there. So on this side, you needed a hill with some big trees on it. And on this side, you needed a valley that was extensive, where you could dig a big hole.
The layout went something like this. The station and queue entrance were to be located roughly where the earth barrier is located today, starting with a turnaround and dropping into a tunnel, weaving under the plaza and exiting roughly where Nemesis's brake run is. At the bottom of a large rocky pit, the ride starts the first lift, dropping and turning right down to an inversion, before a large turn and thrilling corkscrew around the monorail. The ride then turns over the top of the area before dropping back under the monorail and entering the second lift. From here, the ride drops and turns left, entering a loop over the water before turning back over itself towards the area now occupied by Galactica's first drop, entering a helix and returning to the station.
My memory of the Pipeline coaster, it sort of overextended itself, if you know what I mean. It was more extensive than Nemesis, but that would have made it much more boring, of course, because it only had the same energy and it was just sort of stretched out across the side.
So John Wardley went to the US to test the Arrow Pipeline. Would it become Alton Towers' new coaster? After riding the prototype, the verdict was in. The Pipeline was incredibly slow, boring and ponderous. It became clear that, in fact, any thrilling layout was unlikely without lifts that were far too high, and the Secret Weapon was cancelled.
Whatever.
However, the theme of a secretive, high-security facility did resurface at Alton Towers for the park's next major coaster, Oblivion, and the X-Sector area. Ultimately, Arrow would never build any Pipeline coasters. While a new plan was being discussed, the area around the Thunder Looper was landscaped for 1992 as a first phase named Thunder Valley, now linked with the newly opened Haunted House and Katanga Canyon, as well as the rehoming of the Beast coaster to the bottom of the area and the earth barrier screening the outside world. Meanwhile, Alton Towers looked for an alternative new coaster, and there were some exciting rumours coming from the USA. John Wardley caught wind of an enigmatic Swiss engineering company, Bolliger and Mabiard, building a new kind of coaster, the Batman, at Six Flags Great America in Chicago. Incredibly for its time, this new suspended coaster looked able to perform inversions. The Tussauds development team flew to Chicago to test the ride shortly before its opening in spring 1992. It was a resounding success, and this was the result. an ambitious plan to build this exciting new type of coaster again excavated down into the rock bed, and it was here at Andy Nichol's studio that the plan was finalised with the team.
Walter Bollinger flew in from Geneva. John Wardley had driven up from South Wales. Ray Barrett, our esteemed client, who's a wonderful man. And that got the layout pretty much confirmed. And then after that, we were able to proceed. Yeah, we built this in one night, to show what kind of space that we could easily cut out of the rock there. And then some areas obviously would need to have concrete abutments. By getting people in there and having their feet almost going through your hair and ruffling everything as it goes through, it really made the ride. And the delightful thing, having the station halfway up, where it's in an ideal position from an energy point of view. So you come back into the station with lots of energy.
Now the ride starts there and goes up in that direction, right up to the treetops, comes down here, does an upside down corkscrew under the monorail there, and up over the top of the station where it does a 0G roll, then climbs up to those trees where it does a stall turn, drops back down again, does a vertical loop through a tunnel, out of the tunnel there, does another corkscrew over there, into another underground tunnel, another stall turn, and back into the station.
I mean, I remember the excitement of Nemesis. I do remember the general buzz that was about at that time. It was such a big thing. But when I first arrived, it had only just been taken over by Two Swords. I think it was quite quaint, it was quite cute. I liked working there. The first thing we were involved with was Katango Canyon, which was the River Rapids, and the Runaway Mine Train. The setup at that time was that the Two Swords studios were beginning to develop down in London, and they would provide concepts for us to work to.
It was not my world. I was never into theme parks. I was never into roller coasters. In fact, I avoid them like the plague. So I was never a theme park person, and I did go up there, and I was like, Alton Towers was very strange because you've got that whole garden bit to it. And of course, Alton itself is a very, very small place. And then you've got this very surreal theme park smack bang in the middle of nowhere. And at the time, the theming was okay. It was all right, but it really wasn't. They really hadn't got into that. So, and there were some themed rides, but mainly for children.
The kind of theme of the thing, it kind of morphed. John's initial idea was we'll start off saying it's like Quatermass in the pit, and so something sinister, is being found down below the ground.
Alton Towers, of course, has a limit on how high you can build, so you can't go above the tree level, really. So they had to dig a hole. And if you dig a hole, then you've got a story. What do you find? This is the original letter from John Wardley. So the letter basically outlines what he wanted, which is we discover something, it's horrific, but it's also got a cult around it. These people worship whatever it is. What is it?
It was something that we were able to take hold of his concepts and everybody's ideas and put them together and create, what's there on the landscape now.
And luckily, I kind of liked sci-fi and B-movies and that whole kind of nerd world. So for me, it wasn't a sort of push, really.
A team of investigators from the Ministry of Defence cordoned off the site and declared it a prohibited place. What a load of rubbish all this.
Beneath the ground on Towers, something horrible exists. This legend has perpetuated over the centuries when massive rumbling noises have been heard. And movement has been felt as if some huge creature is writhing around underground. The idea was possibly Neolithic, supposed to be worshipped by a cult in the past as well.
And what better way of having that, but big standing stones, because they have a power, I'd actually been to Brittany and seen the Alinement Karnak, those big stones. Nobody knows what they're doing exactly, but you can easily imagine that they're taking you to a site of great historical or religious importance. And with all the smaller bits of stonework, They were turned into seats and steps and things like that. So it's an outrageous version of what was already an outrageous garden. Got pictures there of the hole being dug and the thunder looper being used, alongside each other. The guests were allowed up to a certain point so they could sort of see what was going on in the pit down the standing stone avenue.
Excavations on the huge pit continued during the 1993 season, with Thunder Valley periodically closed to carry out rock blasting.
There was just a real buzz about this thing that was being created. And I suppose it pushed boundaries in the UK. It caused waves at the time that it was there. It was, an exciting thing to be part of.
With the impressive groundworks complete, work began to construct the coaster, featuring a themed station building at its centre.
It was always my feeling that the building should be a creature, really. And I basically then just got loads of anatomy books out. And as you can see, the very early sketches are purely skeletal and sort of bone structures and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, more kind of prehistoric.
Yeah. So it's just bones that were left over. I remember getting the train from Euston up to Alton Towers and just sitting on the train on a table with a book of anatomy, drawing. And it's a great way if you want a free seat, by the way, because people don't tend to sit next to you if you've got a book of cut-up body parts in front of you. I went away and did these more detailed drawings of the actual side of it, which anybody who knows Geiger will realise there's quite a lot of Geiger influence going on there. But there's that idea that basically the whole building, so behind there is your shared building, is covered in this sort of form. And then from that, we actually did the model of the whole thing. So that idea that it could come alive. It's not alive now, but it might be. I went up there with the team and we spent weeks building the model actually. So as you can see, it's not, there's a lot of things going on that were part of the original drawings, a lot of bone structure still visible. All this sort of skin, flesh idea and bits of brain.
The themed station was built by the Alton Towers art workshop team, bringing the giant creature carcass to reality.
If I was being ruthless, I'd say it looks like somebody's draped a skeleton over a shed building. You're looking at these a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Things show up when you're looking at things a long time.
Work also began to install the ride itself, which, uniquely for a coaster, would be themed with a textured effect to the track and supports.
So it came in bits on the lorry and it was dumped on the side, and then we would paint it before it got up onto the ride.
And I think these were the original car designs we had as well, actually. So again, I was asked to think of how they might look and what we could do with them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Bloody versions of them.
The ride itself, every stanchion is on a different height, and when they put it in, they started at the station and then went round, and the last bolts just went through. So it was beautifully put together. So it was a stunning achievement at that time.
And then we had things like the team up in Alton would just go and buy things
One of the things that we were involved in is gathering together all this scrap and all the rubbish and stuff that is around the site. I mean, we toured scrap yards getting bits and bobs that were interesting. And it was model making, but for real. So we had all this rubbish there, and we could go out and people would weld it together and put it together and build stuff. It was all about this race of people who'd been put there to look after the monster. I mean, I tried to think about it, what they were, and they were sort of eco-warrior type hobos, type travelers, type, very Mad Max as well, you know, and this was where they lived. So there was, you know, camps for them, there was kitchens for them, there was huts for them, there was all these bits, and the big weapon thing at the front.
So you'd buy old mining machines or old buses or whatever they wanted, really.
There was that 6-wheeled vehicle that was had fallen over into the pit.
Oh, yeah.
I remember him driving that. It was delivered on a lorry, and he drove it then round to the site, and we put it into the site. We lowered it down, and then the rivers of red that we had. So there was lots of magical stuff that went on with it.
Somebody in the marketing department had the bright idea of them having blood coming down. It was brilliant, and just what it needed.
So that's what happened, basically. It was very, very loose, actually. They weren't very restrictive on what we had to do. They were just kind of go for it.
And with that, Nemesis was complete, ready to open for the 1994 season.
2 years planning, and we're about to take the inaugural run on Nemesis. I think I know what to expect.
Oh, yeah, well, we had to go on it. We had to be the first people on it.
It's wow, here we go.
Great. Don't want to do this, really.
We're picking up speed, and we're about to enter the first inversion, the first barrel roll coming up now. And we're over the top. Now we're picking up speed again, going faster and faster, down, and now we're in the 0G roll.
And I never rode Nemesis at all.
Oh, really?
No, I don't.
Not keen on the coast.
No, I don't.
All coming down and into a vertical loop, up through the loop, through a tunnel. And now, we haven't got any pause here. In theory, this should be the most exciting bit of the ride. Upside down into a tunnel, out of a tunnel, and wow, into the brakes.
It was fun. I did get it. It was good fun, actually. Good fun ride.
That was the most sensational thing I've ever done.
The ride's theme was also adapted by the marketing department to create a range of media and merchandise, including a promotional film, a themed drink, and even a souvenir audio cassette narrated by actor Tom Baker.
I mean, you've seen the video on Nemesis, which is absolutely legendary, of John in his very tight t-shirt, the yellow helmet, jumping around the site, talking. If you're the marketing director and you've got somebody you can bring into life like that, it's fantastic.
Everybody in the UK said in nothing else but Alton Towers.
I am the spirit of Nemesis.
Finally, in March 1994, after years of planning and construction, Nemesis was launched. So many guests turned up to Alton Towers that year that it had a record year of attendance. The queue for Nemesis often stretched to 3 hours long.
By the time we got to 94 and we launched Nemesis, the park, which had been down in the low 1 millions, is back above 2 million on visitation. And obviously then with Nemesis went rocketing towards 3. So it was good.
So what would you say, looking back, is your favourite project or
Nemesis. Has to be Nemesis. It's always been the best. I think I mentioned when we were doing Nemesis and Warwick Castle together, the Kingmaker, I said, it doesn't get better than this. It really doesn't get better than this. They were a joy to work on.
I loved standing at the entrance when it comes up and goes around the first loop, and the noise that it makes as it goes around that loop, not only of the ride, but of the kids and people on it as well. It's incredible.
And what you must remember, any of these projects, they look like, big project and all the rest of it. It's all about individuals working together and with great ideas coming from the most unlikely people sometimes. To be working with really good people and to be able to make a good product like that was the best thing.
Even now, when I see people and I say that, I was part of that team, they all know the ride. Everybody knows that ride. If you know one ride in the UK, it's Nemesis. It's a special thing, I think.
Thanks so much for watching. I love to make these videos to share with everyone. If you enjoyed it, please consider supporting us on Patreon because we rely on our members for extra funding. These videos often take over a year to make, so we really appreciate it. And if you never see any uploads from me again, it's because I went on Furious Barcode. Bye!